The clink of crystal, the soft murmur of conversation, the amber glow of the French laundry. It was our 5th wedding anniversary, and Julian, my husband, looked every bit the successful CEO of Sterling Vineyards, the company I'd inherited from my father. He held the door for me, his tailored suit sharp, his cologne a subtle blend of sandalwood and bergamot that always seemed to precede him. We were seated at our usual table, near the window, where the soft evening light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a warm, intimate glow. Chloe, a young server with bright, attentive eyes, approached our table, a leather-bound wine list in her hand. Julian, without a glance at me, his gaze already fixed on the list, ordered a 2017 Chateau Margaux. It arrived, ruby red, in a delicate decanter, its polished surface reflecting the candlelight. A wine that cost more than my monthly mortgage. Chloe poured a taste for Julian first. He swirled it with a practiced hand, inhaled deeply, a faint smile playing on his lips, then nodded his approval. Only then did she pour mine. I lifted the glass, the ritual ingrained from years of living and breathing wine. Swirl, sniff, sip. The wine smelled of blackcurrant, cedar, a hint of violet, a complex bouquet that promised perfection. But as I swallowed, a wave of dizziness washed over me, sudden and disorienting. The room tilted, the elegant chandeliers blurring into streaks of light. I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles white against the crisp linen, the fine china rattling faintly. A cold sweat pricked my hairline. "Everything all right, Clara?" Julian asked, his voice smooth, laced with just the right amount of concern. "Just a little dizzy," I managed, blinking hard, trying to clear the sudden fog from my vision. I think I stood up too fast earlier, rushing to get ready. He reached across the table, his hand warm and firm as he took mine, his thumb stroking my skin in a comforting gesture. "You've been pushing yourself too hard, my love. The new expansion, the endless board meetings, the constant travel. You need to rest. You look utterly exhausted." His eyes, usually so sharp, seemed to soften with genuine worry. I pulled my hand back gently, a faint unease stirring within me. "I'm fine, Julian, really, just a momentary lapse." But I wasn't. My head felt heavy, a dull ache throbbing behind my eyes, and my thoughts felt sluggish, like trying to walk through thick fog. Julian leaned forward, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, his gaze sweeping the room as if to ensure our privacy. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something important." He pulled a folded document from the inside pocket of his jacket, the crisp paper rustling softly, and slid it across the table toward me. "Power of attorney. Just temporary. If something happens, if you get sick or need time off, I can handle things at the winery. Keep everything running smoothly, without any disruptions." I stared at the paper, the legal jargon blurring together, each word a heavy weight. "Julian, I don't..." A knot tightened in my stomach. The idea of relinquishing control, even temporarily, felt profoundly wrong. "It's just a precaution, Clara," he said, his tone firmer now, a subtle edge beneath the feigned concern. "You've been forgetting things lately, missing important meetings. My sister, Eleanor, has been covering for you, but people are starting to notice. It's for your own good, for the good of the company." Another wave of dizziness, more intense this time, washed over me. The chandelier overhead seemed too bright, its crystal facets too sharp, too close. I'll think about it," I mumbled, my voice barely audible. "We can sign it Monday," he said, folding the paper back into his pocket with a decisive movement. No rush at all, but there was something in his eyes, something sharp and calculating beneath the veneer of concern, a flicker of triumph that made my stomach twist into a cold, hard knot. Dinner passed in a haze. I barely touched the roasted sea bass, the delicate truffle risotto, the flavors muted and distant. Julian, by contrast, ate with calm efficiency, occasionally glancing at his phone, his attention seemingly divided between the meal and some unseen obligation. When the check came, he paid in cash, a thick wad of bills, then stood and offered me his arm, his touch still solicitous. "Let's get you home, my love." "You look like you need a good night's rest." We walked out into the cool night air, the crisp Napa Valley breeze a welcome relief against my flushed skin. The parking lot was quiet, lit by soft yellow lamps that cast long, dancing shadows. Julian kissed my forehead, a chaste, almost perfunctory gesture. "I'll bring the car around. Wait here, Clara." I nodded, watching him disappear between the rows of gleaming luxury cars, his figure silhouetted against the distant glow of the restaurant. And that's when I realized I'd left my phone on the table, a small, nagging detail in the fog of my mind. I turned back toward the restaurant, my heels clicking a rapid rhythm on the paved lot. But before I reached the heavy oak door, a hand, strong and unyielding, closed around my wrist. I spun, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "Don't scream!" It was Marcus Thorne. He stood in the shadows near a black SUV, his face pale, his jaw tight, etched with an urgency that instantly sobered me. Marcus was 42 now, still lean and sharp-eyed, with the same intensity he'd had as a young man, learning the wine trade under my father. Except now there was fear in those eyes, a raw, palpable fear that sent a shiver down my spine. "Marcus, what the hell are you doing?" I demanded, my voice a harsh whisper. "Get in the car, Clara," he said, his voice low and urgent, his grip on my wrist tightening imperceptibly. "Julian's still inside. We have maybe 2 minutes. Tops." He pulled open the passenger door of the SUV, the interior dark and inviting. I hesitated, glancing back toward the restaurant, a flicker of doubt warring with the sudden, inexplicable terror in Marcus's eyes. Marcus stepped closer, his hand on my shoulder, his touch grounding me, his gaze unwavering. "Please, Clara, trust me. There's no time to explain." The sheer desperation in his voice was enough. I climbed in, the leather seat cool beneath me. He shut the door, locked it with a sharp click, and slid into the driver's seat, his hands visibly shaking as he gripped the steering wheel. "Marcus, you're scaring me," I repeated, my voice trembling. "Good," he said, his eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror, a grim determination hardening his features. "You should be scared, Clara. Very scared." He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen rapidly, and held it up for me to see. I leaned closer, my breath catching in my throat. The video was grainy, shot from across the dining room, the ambient light of the restaurant casting long, distorted shadows. I recognized our table, the window behind us, the delicate decanter, and Julian. He was looking over his shoulder, a quick, furtive glance, then reaching into his jacket. He pulled out a small vial, clear liquid glinting under the dim light, and tipped it into my wineglass. Just a few drops, almost imperceptible. Then he slipped the vial back into his pocket, a smooth, practiced movement, and smiled as Chloe returned with our appetizers. I couldn't breathe. The air felt thick, suffocating. My mind reeled, trying to process the impossible image. "That," Marcus said, his voice shaking, raw with suppressed anger, "is a cognitive inhibitor, industrial grade. It's been shutting down your memory, your decision-making, your very ability to think clearly for months. In 2 weeks, maybe less, he'll have you declared mentally incompetent. Julian's already laying the groundwork to take everything, Clara, every last thing you own." "No," I whispered, the word a fragile denial against the crushing weight of the truth. "No, that's impossible. He wouldn't. He's going to take Sterling Vineyards, Clara, the estate, your father's legacy, everything he built," Marcus insisted, his voice rising with urgency. "He's been planning this for over a year, meticulously, patiently." He reached into the center console and pulled out a small glass vial, sealed with a cork. Inside was a dark red liquid, a sample from my glass. "I collected a sample from your glass when the server wasn't looking, just after he dosed it. Get it tested, Clara. You'll see I'm not lying. You'll see it's all true." I took the vial with trembling hands, the glass cold against my skin. My mind was spinning, grasping for logic, for denial, for any explanation other than the horrifying truth. But then I thought about the past few weeks, the persistent fog in my head, the meetings I'd inexplicably missed, the moments I'd lost track of time. the strange, unsettling lapses in memory, the power of attorney document waiting to be signed. It all clicked into place with a sickening thud. "Why didn't you tell me sooner, Marcus?" I asked, my voice breaking, tears stinging my eyes. "I only found out tonight, Clara, for certain," Marcus said, his gaze fixed on the road as he slowly pulled out of the parking lot, heading away from the restaurant. "I've been worried about you for a while, though. You stopped answering my texts. You seemed distant. Eleanor said you weren't yourself, that you were struggling, so I followed Julian. I know how that sounds, Clara. I know it's extreme, but I had to be sure. I had to see it with my own eyes." He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the young man who used to help my father in the cellars, his face smudged with dirt, his eyes bright with loyalty, who promised him he'd protect the vineyard no matter what. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm so sorry, Clara, that I didn't see it sooner." Headlights swept across the windshield, blinding us for a moment. Julian's sleek Mercedes pulled into view, turning into the row we had just vacated. "Go," Marcus said, his voice sharp, urgent. "Act normal. Don't let him know you know. And for God's sake, Clara, don't sign anything he puts in front of you." I nodded, slipping the vial into my purse, the cold glass a stark reminder of the betrayal. I climbed out of the SUV, my legs unsteady beneath me, and walked toward Julian's car, forcing a semblance of normalcy onto my face. He rolled down the window, his smile wide and reassuring. "There you are, my love. Thought you got lost in the shadows." "Just needed some air," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, as I slid into the passenger seat. We drove home in silence, the quiet punctuated only by the soft hum of the engine. My hands gripped the vial in my purse, a desperate anchor in the storm of my thoughts. As we pulled into the garage, a thought crept into my mind, a memory I'd buried under layers of confusion. I'd forgotten about the investor meeting yesterday, a crucial one, and the day before, I'd left the cellar door unlocked, a lapse that could have cost us dearly. Julian had chided me gently each time, his voice laced with a concern that now felt like a carefully constructed lie, a performance designed to erode my confidence. The next morning, I was up before dawn, the events of the previous night replaying in a horrifying loop. I called my closest friend, a forensic toxicologist named Dr. Evelyn Reed, her number a lifeline in the darkness. She agreed to meet me at her lab before her first appointment, her voice already tinged with concern at the urgency in mine. I handed her the vial, my hand still trembling. "I need this tested for everything, Evelyn. Anything that could impair cognitive function, anything that could cause memory loss or confusion." Her expression was grim as she took it, her brow furrowed with professional curiosity and personal worry. "I'll call you as soon as I have results, Clara." This looks serious. I spent the day in a blur, the hours stretching endlessly. I pretended to work, but my mind was racing, a frantic hamster on a wheel. Every interaction with Julian felt like a performance, a dangerous dance on the edge of a precipice. Every kind word, every solicitous touch was a lie, a poisoned apple. I watched him, searching for tells, for a flicker of the monster beneath the mask. He was flawless, a master of deception. He even brought me a cup of herbal tea. To help with the dizziness, his eyes full of feigned tenderness. I poured it down the sink when he wasn't looking, the warm liquid swirling away, carrying with it the bitter taste of betrayal. That evening, Evelyn called. Her voice was tight, strained. "Clara, the results are back. It's a synthetic anticholinergic. A powerful one. It causes memory loss, confusion, disorientation, difficulty concentrating. Long-term exposure can mimic early-onset dementia, even Alzheimer's." My breath hitched, a sharp, painful gasp. "How long, Evelyn? How long has this been happening?" "Based on the concentration in the sample and the symptoms you've described, I'd say at least 8 months, possibly longer." 8 months. My entire life had been a fog, a carefully orchestrated illusion, for 8 months. My father had died 3 years ago, leaving Sterling Vineyards entirely to me, his only child. Julian had been my rock, my confidant, my partner, my everything. Or so I thought. The realization was a physical blow, a punch to the gut. "Is there an antidote?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, hope a fragile flicker in the darkness. "Not a direct one, Clara. But if you stop exposure, your brain will slowly recover. It could take months, possibly even a year, for full recovery. You'll need to be vigilant, to avoid any further contact with the substance." "Thank you, Evelyn," I said, tears streaming down my face, hot and silent. "Thank you for everything." I hung up, my world shattered into a million irreparable pieces. Julian wasn't just my husband. He was my poisoner, my betrayer, the architect of my slow, agonizing decline. He was systematically dismantling my mind, my legacy, my very life. I had to fight back. But how? He controlled everything. He had the power of attorney document waiting to be signed, a legal noose around my neck. He had Eleanor, his sister, seemingly on his side, feeding him information about my supposed mental decline, corroborating his insidious narrative. I called Marcus, my voice flat, devoid of emotion, as if reporting a weather forecast. "He's been poisoning me for months, Marcus." Evelyn confirmed it. "A cognitive inhibitor." There was a long silence on the other end, the quiet stretching between us, heavy with unspoken grief and anger. "I knew it," he finally said, his voice thick with emotion, a raw ache in his tone. "I knew something was wrong, Clara. Your father, he would have wanted me to protect you. He made me promise." "We need a plan, Marcus," I said, a new resolve hardening my voice, a cold fire igniting in my gut. "We need to expose him, and we need to protect Sterling Vineyards, no matter the cost." "I'm with you, Clara," he said without hesitation, his loyalty a beacon in the darkness. "What do you need? Anything. I need to know everything about Julian's finances. Every account, every investment, every hidden transaction. And I need to know what he plans to do with the winery, his ultimate goal." "I have a contact," Marcus said, his voice already shifting into a more practical, strategic tone. "A private investigator, discreet, highly skilled. He owes me a favor, a big one." Over the next few days, a quiet war began, fought in the shadows, beneath the surface of our seemingly normal lives. I pretended to be even more confused, more forgetful, exaggerating my symptoms for Julian's benefit. I misplaced important documents, forgot about crucial meetings, and struggled with simple tasks, playing the role of the slowly deteriorating wife. Julian watched me with a sickeningly paternal gaze, his concern a thin veil over his barely concealed triumph. He even brought up the power of attorney again, gently urging me to sign it for my own good, for the good of the company. I feigned a sudden, debilitating headache, promising to look at it later, buying myself precious time. Meanwhile, Marcus's investigator, a sharp-eyed woman named Lena, worked tirelessly, her fingers flying across keyboards, her mind dissecting financial records. She uncovered a sprawling web of shell corporations, offshore accounts, and shady investments, a labyrinth of deceit. Julian wasn't just trying to take Sterling Vineyards. He was bleeding it dry, systematically siphoning off funds for years, preparing to sell the company to a massive agricultural conglomerate, Titan Chem, for a fraction of its true value. The deal, Lena discovered, was set to close in 2 weeks, just after he planned to have me declared mentally incompetent. The most shocking discovery, however, was about Eleanor. She wasn't just Julian's sister, she was his accomplice, an active participant in his scheme. Lena found encrypted messages between them, detailing my symptoms, my forgetfulness, and Julian's meticulous plans. Eleanor had been actively sabotaging my work, deleting crucial emails, misfiling important reports, all to create a false narrative of my mental decline, to provide Julian with the evidence he needed. The betrayal cut deeper than Julian's, a festering wound. Eleanor was family, my sister-in-law, someone I had trusted, or so I thought. "We need to move the entire reserve collection," I told Marcus, my voice firm, devoid of any lingering doubt. "The rare vintages, the ones my father cherished, the heart and soul of Sterling Vineyards. They're worth millions, and if Julian sells to Titan Chem, they'll just liquidate them, turn them into cheap ethanol." "It's risky, Clara," Marcus said, his brow furrowed with concern. He has security cameras everywhere, motion sensors, alarms, and he's always watching, always suspicious. Then we make sure he sees nothing, I replied, a cold determination settling over me. We create a diversion, and we use the old underground tunnels. My father had shown me the network of forgotten tunnels beneath the vineyard when I was a child, a secret world known only to a select few, a hidden escape route. That night, under the cloak of darkness, Marcus and I, along with a small, trusted team of vineyard workers, began our operation. We disabled the main security cameras, rerouting the feeds to show a continuous loop of an empty cellar, a ghostly tableau. We filled the main vault with hundreds of bottles of cheap, unlabeled wine, carefully aged to look like the real thing, their dusty surfaces mimicking years of careful storage. It was a painstaking process, each bottle a small act of defiance, but every one we moved felt like a victory, a reclaiming of what was rightfully ours. The real collection, carefully catalogued and packed in custom-built crates, was moved through the dusty, forgotten tunnels to a hidden, secure cellar deep beneath the oldest part of the estate, a place only 3 people knew about. By 4 a.m, Marcus and I stood in the empty vault, the air thick with the scent of old wood and damp earth. The shelves were full again, lined with 500 bottles of colored water, their labels salvaged from damaged bottles, their glass aged and dusty. In the dim light, they looked real, perfect decoys. The real collection was 50 meters away, locked in a vault only 3 people knew about. David's team had already left, the truck gone, disappearing into the pre-dawn darkness. The winery was silent, a vast, sleeping entity. "Julian will come looking," I said quietly, a shiver running down my spine despite the warmth of the moment. Marcus nodded, his eyes glinting in the faint light. "Let him look. All he'll find is fake wine worth pennies, a cruel joke." I turned to him, and for the first time in days, a genuine smile touched my lips, a fragile bloom of hope. "Then we make sure he doesn't suspect anything until Friday." "And on Friday?" Marcus asked, a hint of anticipation in his voice. "On Friday," I said, my voice hardening with resolve, "we end this. For good." Eleanor's voice crackled through the earpiece one last time, a ghost in the machine. Systems back online. Julian's access restored. From his perspective, nothing happened. "Sleep tight, you two." I pulled out the earpiece, the small device warm against my ear, and looked around the vault one last time. My father's collection. His life's work was safe. The formula for his signature blend, the one Julian coveted, was safe. The company was still mine. Julian thought he was winning, that his insidious plan was unfolding perfectly. He had no idea he'd already lost, that his carefully constructed house of cards was about to collapse. Marcus and I climbed the stairs, closed the hidden door, and reset the mechanism. The wine cabinet swung back into place, seamless, indistinguishable from the surrounding wall. We walked out into the cool pre-dawn air. The vineyard was silent, shrouded in a thin mist. The sky was just beginning to lighten in the east, painting the horizon with faint streaks of rose and gold. Somewhere in San Francisco, Julian was asleep beside his mistress, dreaming of $42 million, of a future built on lies and betrayal. But when he woke up, the clock would already be ticking, and he wouldn't even know it. Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock, my phone rang, its sudden jolt making me spill a drop of coffee on my silk blouse. "We have a problem," Eleanor said, her voice ice-cold, devoid of her usual sarcastic edge. I sat up straighter, my coffee forgotten, the warmth draining from my body. "What is it, Eleanor?" "Someone's been trying to delete the security logs from Monday night. Camera footage, access records, everything from the wine transfer. They're trying to erase all traces of your little midnight excursion." My blood ran cold, a sudden, sharp fear piercing through my carefully constructed calm. Can they do that? Can they really wipe everything? "Not if I catch them first," Eleanor said, a grim satisfaction in her tone. I could hear the rapid clicking of keys in the background, a furious symphony of code. "I've been monitoring the system 24/7 since Saturday, Clara. Every login, every file access, every deleted record gets flagged and backed up automatically to a secure, off-site server. Whoever's doing this has no idea I'm watching, that I've mirrored everything. Who is it? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Tracing the IP now. A pause, punctuated by more frantic clicking. Got it. The access is coming from a company laptop registered to Liam Miller. I frowned, trying to place the name. Liam Miller? Our marketing director? That's the one, Eleanor said. He's been in the system for the past 2 hours, systematically wiping logs. But he's sloppy, Clara. He doesn't know I mirrored everything to an encrypted server the moment it happened. He thinks he's covering his tracks, but he's just digging himself deeper. Can you get into his computer? His personal files? Already there, Eleanor said, a triumphant note in her voice. Give me 10 minutes, Clara. I'll have everything. I called Marcus, my hands shaking as I dialed. He arrived at Eleanor's apartment 20 minutes later, his face grim, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. Eleanor's living room had been transformed into a command center. 3 monitors glowed on her desk, each displaying streams of complex code, security footage from various angles of the vineyard, and intricate file directories. She didn't look up when we walked in, her focus absolute. Talk to me, Eleanor, I said, my voice tight with anticipation. Eleanor pulled up a window on the center monitor, her fingers flying across the keyboard. Liam Miller, 36 years old, hired 2 years ago as marketing director, degree from UC Davis. References checked out. Background clean, or so it seemed. She clicked to another window, and a scanned image of a birth certificate appeared on the screen. Name, Liam Michael Thorne. Born April 14, 1986. Mother, Sarah Miller Thorne. Father, Daniel Thorne. His real name is Liam Thorne, Eleanor said, her voice devoid of emotion. He's been using his mother's maiden name, Miller, to hide the connection. Connection to what? Marcus asked, his voice a low growl. Eleanor pulled up a complex family tree diagram, lines connecting names, dates, and places. Sarah Miller Thorne is Julian Sullivan's first cousin, which makes Liam his nephew. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me, a sickening lurch in my stomach. He's been working for us for 2 years? I whispered, the betrayal a fresh wound. I approved his hiring. I remember the interviews. Julian approved it, Eleanor corrected, her eyes still fixed on the screen. I pulled the hiring files from the archives. You signed off on the initial interview. Yes, but Julian had final approval. And look at this. She pulled up another document, a background check report. Background check was flagged for verification, a minor discrepancy, but Julian overrode it personally, citing a pressing need for the position to be filled immediately. Marcus swore under his breath, a harsh, guttural sound. Liam has been feeding Julian information for 2 years, acting as his spy within the company. Exactly, Eleanor continued, her voice gaining momentum. Access codes, meeting schedules, financial reports, sensitive internal communications, everything. He was Julian's eyes and ears inside Sterling Vineyards. Why didn't we catch this sooner? I asked, the question a desperate plea for understanding. Because he's good, Clara, Eleanor said, a grudging respect in her tone. He uses his mother's maiden name, a different address, no social media connections to Julian. On paper, there's no relationship whatsoever. You'd have to dig into birth records and obscure family trees to find it, which is precisely what I just did. She opened another window, and a series of emails appeared on the screen. And here's where it gets worse. It was an email thread, the interface looking different from our standard company system, encrypted, minimalist, designed for secrecy, from l.thorn.secure@protonmail.com to j.sullivan.privet@protonmail.com. Date, October 18th, 2022, 6:47 a.m. Julian, truck left the facility last night around 2200, temperature-controlled vehicle, 6-person crew led by David Torres. I tried to follow, but they turned off transponders. No idea where they went. From jsullivan.private@protonmail.com to l.thorn.secure@protonmail.com. Date, October 18th, 2022, 7:15 a.m. Find it, Liam. Bribe someone if you have to. I need to know where that wine is. The entire deal hinges on it. Proton Mail. From l.thorn.secure@protonmail.com. Date, October 18th, 2022, 9:22 a.m. Torres won't talk, Julian. His team's loyal to Clara, fiercely so. I could try accessing the vault directly, check if the bottles are still there. L. From jsullivan.private@protonmail.com to l.thorn.secure@protonmail.com. Date, October 18th, 2022, 9:38 a.m. Do it tonight, Liam. Break in if you have to. I need to know what she moved and where it is. If those bottles are gone, the deal with Titan Chem is dead. Understand? Dead. J. I stared at the screen, my hands shaking, a cold fury building within me. How did you get these, Eleanor? Marcus asked, his voice laced with awe. Liam uses Proton Mail, an encrypted email service, Eleanor explained, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction. But he also uses a VPN that routes through an unsecured server in Estonia. It's a rookie mistake, a glaring vulnerability. I was able to intercept the traffic and decrypt it. These emails confirm everything. Julian knew about the wine transfer. He knew about the hidden vault. He sent his nephew to find it, to steal it back. He's desperate, I said, a cold calm settling over me, replacing the initial shock. He knows we moved the wine. He knows the Titan Chem deal is in jeopardy, that his entire scheme is unraveling. What's the plan, Clara? Marcus asked, his gaze fixed on me, awaiting my command. We let him break in, I said, a dangerous glint in my eyes. We let Liam find the fake wine, and then we spring the trap. Eleanor worked through the night, her apartment a hive of activity, fueled by strong coffee and an almost manic energy. She set up a sophisticated surveillance system, linking every camera in the main vault to her monitors, recording every angle, every shadow. Motion sensors were activated, silent alarms armed, their invisible tripwires waiting. We even placed a small GPS tracker on one of the fake bottles, just in case Liam tried to move them, a tiny electronic breadcrumb. The next evening, just after midnight, the alarms went off, a soft, almost imperceptible ping on Eleanor's screen. Her monitor flickered to life, displaying a live feed from the main vault. Liam Miller, dressed in black, his face partially obscured by a ski mask, was inside. He moved with a practiced ease, clearly familiar with the layout, his movements fluid and confident. He scanned the shelves, his eyes darting from bottle to bottle, his movements quick and efficient. He pulled out a bottle, examined the label under the beam of his flashlight, then put it back with a frustrated sigh. He was looking for something specific, something he clearly wasn't finding. He's checking for the rare vintages, Marcus whispered, his voice tight with anticipation. The ones he knows are worth a fortune. Liam spent nearly an hour in the vault, his frustration growing with each passing minute, his movements becoming more agitated. He opened several bottles, sniffed the contents, his shoulders slumping with disappointment, and then slammed them back onto the shelves with increasing force. Finally, he pulled out his phone, his fingers flying across the screen, and typed a frantic message. Eleanor intercepted it instantly, the words appearing on her monitor. Vault full of fakes? She moved everything. Deal is dead. Julian, we're screwed. Now, I said, my voice sharp and clear, cutting through the tension in the room. Call the authorities, Eleanor, and send them the video footage, the decrypted emails, everything you have. Make sure they have undeniable proof. Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens pierced the night, growing louder with each passing second. Liam, startled, his head snapping up, tried to flee, but he was no match for the local police, who swarmed the vineyard, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. He was apprehended in the vineyard, still holding his phone, the incriminating messages still on the screen, a deer caught in the headlights. The next morning, the news broke like a tidal wave. Julian Sullivan, CEO of Sterling Vineyards, arrested on charges of fraud, attempted murder, and corporate espionage. Liam Miller, his nephew, arrested as an accomplice. The story was a sensation, splashed across every news outlet, a scandal that rocked the quiet world of Napa Valley. My name, Clara Sterling, was everywhere. The woman who had been poisoned by her husband, who had fought back against incredible odds and saved her family legacy. Julian's trial was a circus, a media frenzy. He denied everything, his arrogance unwavering, claiming I was mentally unstable, that I had fabricated the evidence in a fit of delusion. But the video of him poisoning my wine, the irrefutable toxicology reports, Eleanor's decrypted emails, and Liam's tearful confession were undeniable. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Julian was sentenced to 25 years in prison, his empire crumbling around him. Liam received a lighter sentence for cooperating with the prosecution, a small mercy for his complicity. Eleanor, after her initial betrayal, had played a crucial, indispensable role in exposing Julian. She confessed to her part in the scheme, expressing deep remorse, her face etched with shame and regret. I was hesitant to forgive her, the wound of her betrayal still fresh and raw, but Marcus reminded me that she had ultimately chosen the right side, that she had helped me, at great personal risk to herself. We decided to give her a second chance, on probation, with strict oversight, a chance to rebuild her life and her integrity. The aftermath was a whirlwind of legal battles, financial restructuring, and emotional recovery. Sterling Vineyards was saved, its legacy intact. The Titan Chem deal was dead, a distant nightmare. I had to rebuild, to regain the trust of my employees, my customers, and most importantly, myself. It was a long, arduous process, but I wasn't alone. Marcus, my father's most loyal protégé, stood by my side, helping me navigate the complexities of the legal system, the intricacies of corporate finance, and the immense emotional toll. He became my COO, my confidant, and eventually, something more, a quiet strength in the storm. My recovery was slow, a gradual ascent from the depths of confusion. The cognitive inhibitor had taken its toll, leaving lingering shadows. I still had moments of confusion, of disorientation, fleeting lapses that reminded me of the darkness I had endured. But with Evelyn's expert guidance and Marcus's unwavering support, I slowly regained my mental clarity. The fog lifted, day by day, week by week. The memories returned, sharp and vivid, bringing with them the pain of betrayal, but also the profound strength I found within myself. One evening, months after the trial, Marcus and I sat on the porch overlooking the vineyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and crimson, a breathtaking tableau of nature's artistry. He reached for my hand, his touch gentle, reassuring. "Clara," he said, his voice soft, a tremor of emotion in his tone. "I've loved you for a very long time. Since we were children, really. I know you've been through so much, and I don't expect anything from you. But I want you to know, I'll always be here. Always." Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the beautiful sunset. "I know, Marcus," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "And I think I'm starting to love you too, Marcus. Really love you, not just as a friend or a partner, but as a man, a wonderful, loyal man." He smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners, a warmth radiating from him. "I've waited 20 years, Clara. I can wait as long as you need, for as long as it takes." I leaned in and kissed him, soft, tentative, but real, a promise of a future finally free from shadows. When I pulled back, he was still smiling, his gaze tender. "You're 43 years old," I said quietly, a playful note in my voice. "Still young, still strong, still the man my father trusted above everyone else." "And you're 38, he said, brushing a stray strand of hair from my face, his touch feather-light. "The woman I've loved since you were 20, the woman who saved her family's legacy." I smiled through the tears, a genuine, unburdened smile. "Then we're not wasting another day, Marcus. Not one." That evening, the three of us, Marcus, Eleanor, and I, sat on the porch overlooking the vineyard. The sun had dipped below the horizon, but the sky still glowed with lingering hues of purple and orange. I poured a glass of our finest vintage, a special blend my father had created, into 3 delicate crystal glasses. Eleanor raised hers, a tentative smile on her face. "To new beginnings," she said, her voice soft. Marcus raised his eyes warm. To family, he said, his gaze encompassing both Eleanor and me. I raised mine, the wine swirling, reflecting the last vestiges of light. To truth, I said, my voice clear and strong. However bitter it is, it's better than a beautiful lie. We drank. The wine was complex, bitter at first, then warming, then floral and bright, a symphony of flavors. It tasted like survival, like rebirth, like the promise of a future reclaimed. I stood and walked inside, the cool air of the house a stark contrast to the warmth of the evening. From my desk drawer, I pulled out the power of attorney document Julian had prepared last October, the one I'd refused to sign, the symbol of his insidious plot. I'd kept it all these months as a reminder, a tangible representation of the darkness I had overcome. I carried it to the fireplace, struck a match, and held the paper over the flickering flames. It caught quickly, curling and blackening, the words dissolving into smoke. I watched it burn until there was nothing left but ash, a fine, gray powder that drifted into the hearth. When I returned to the porch, Marcus and Eleanor were watching me, their faces alight with understanding. "It's done," I said, a sense of profound release washing over me. Marcus reached for my hand, his fingers intertwining with mine. I took it and sat beside him, leaning into his warmth. Eleanor leaned her head on my shoulder, a gesture of quiet reconciliation. We sat in silence as the last sliver of sun disappeared below the horizon. The vineyard stretched before us. 60 years of sterling family history, 60 years of roots and growth and survival. Julian had tried to poison my body, he'd tried to poison my mind, he'd tried to poison my legacy, but he'd failed, because some things, love, family, truth, can never be poisoned. They only grow stronger in the fire, forged anew. I looked at Marcus, then at Eleanor. My family, not by blood, but by choice, by loyalty, by love, by shared experience. "What's next?" Eleanor asked, her voice filled with a hopeful anticipation I hadn't heard in years. I smiled, a wide, genuine smile that reached my eyes. "We make wine, we tell the truth, and we live, fully and without fear." Marcus squeezed my hand, his smile mirroring mine. "Sounds perfect, Clara. Absolutely perfect." The first stars appeared overhead, tiny pinpricks of light against the darkening canvas of the sky. The vineyard rustled in the evening breeze, a gentle whisper through the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird sang its lonely, beautiful song. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, inhaling the rich, earthy scent of the soil, the faint sweetness of ripening grapes, the subtle aroma of wood smoke from a nearby chimney. I was home. I was free. I was whole. And for the first time in 3 long, arduous years, I was exactly where I belonged, surrounded by love and truth. And to you listening to this story, remember this. I once believed that silence would protect me, that ignoring the warning signs, the missing money, the strange symptoms, the gut feeling that something was profoundly wrong, would somehow make them disappear. I was wrong. Family betrayal doesn't announce itself with fanfare, with dramatic confrontations. It creeps in quietly, insidiously, disguised as love, as partnership, as unwavering trust. Julian didn't poison me overnight. He did it slowly, methodically, for 8 agonizing months, chipping away at my mind, my confidence, my very identity, and I let him because I wanted to believe in the life we'd built together, in the man I thought he was. But here's what I've learned, what I want you to take away from my journey. Fighting back isn't about anger or hatred or vengeance. It's about reclaiming what was stolen from you. Your voice, your power, your truth, your sense of self. When I finally fought back, I wasn't driven by a desire for retribution. I was driven by survival, by a fierce need to protect my father's legacy, and by a profound desire to protect others from the same insidious family betrayal I'd endured. If there's one thing I wish I'd known earlier, one piece of advice I could impart, it's this. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, if that quiet voice inside whispers a warning, investigate. Don't wait for undeniable proof to fall into your lap. Don't convince yourself you're overreacting, that you're being paranoid. Because by the time the evidence is undeniable, the damage may already be done, irreversible. God gave us intuition for a reason. He whispers warnings through that quiet voice inside, the one we so often ignore because we're afraid of what we might find, afraid of shattering the comfortable illusions we've built. Listen to it. Don't be like me. Don't waste years on someone who sees you as a means to an end, a stepping stone to their own selfish desires. Don't sacrifice your health, your sanity, or your legacy for a love that was never real, a partnership built on lies. Family betrayal is a wound, deep and painful, but healing, that's a choice, a conscious decision, and I choose to heal. If this story resonated with you, if it stirred something within you, please share it. Comment below with your thoughts, your own experiences. Subscribe to this channel for more true stories of resilience, survival, and the unwavering power of truth. Thank you for listening until the very end. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.